I kind of had to like swallow my pride and be like, I'm not going to take this opportunity because I know that the trade-off is not worth it.
All I know is I don't feel good when I'm looking at Instagram Reels or TikTok all day.
Finding balance between my hyperdrive days and my slump days so that I don't have too many I hate myself days.
I don't know, but I was like, I think I would have to stop dating them, and I think she did break up with him.
Oh, shoot.
Wow, welcome back, you nerds. This is Not For Everyone, hosted by a lover and a hater, and it's 2024. If you missed it, there was a year that happened over the last 12 months, and now it's done, and now it's a different year, which is something I keep forgetting.
Huge
I
update.
just huge update, huge update. I have a life update, which is that I'm living in a new year now.
That is huge for you. How does that
Thank
feel?
you. It feels pretty much just a lot like the last year, but a little more confusing because I'm disoriented a lot. But yeah, I would say this year is feeling pretty much like a year still.
It's feeling like it's definitely feeling for me like just a continuation of my life. You know what I mean? Like my life just keeps on
That's
going.
cool. Yeah, yeah. No, I didn't like black out or anything when the clock struck midnight or not
I
my
wanted
anything.
to.
Yeah,
I
well,
was
yeah.
hoping for something, a little more,
I
something to
was
feel.
yeah, I was hoping to feel. I don't think this is going to be my year to feel anything. I think I'm going to keep just
Mm,
vibing and
for sure.
touch. Yeah, for sure. I did I guess I do have another life update other than me living in a new year. I did something pretty big over the
Okay.
weekend. Over the weekend, I invented a new sport.
Fuck, you're so good. You just do things
Yeah.
for the world every single
Yeah.
day.
Yeah, I think I'm really good. I invented a new sport. How can I explain this sport? It's first I invented in my head. Like I haven't like held any like conferences or anything yet. But
Shoot. That's the
let
next
me
step.
let me let me try and explain this sport to you. And I was going to say I'm really important about it, but that's not the English language. It's really important to me to see this become a reality.
hmm
So, you've heard of marathons?
I only have heard of them, literally heard.
Okay, yeah, don't it's mostly a sport you listen to.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
When I okay, so in a marathon, there's a marathon. All the little skinny sad people are running, right?
They're
And
so sick.
they're so sad. And it's really hard to explain. You know, the person who wins, presumably they worked really hard. They pushed themselves through the race. They pushed their own personal limits, you know, whatever. But possibly there is someone else or multiple other people in this marathon race who like pushed themselves, relatively speaking, pushed themselves way harder and achieved like proportionately, relatively speaking, like hit like pushed way harder. I'm
More
talking about like
gains.
I
More
think
gains.
willpower. Yeah, I think I'm talking about like proportionate willpower. Like because if you think about me, if I race, I'm not a marathon runner, but if I race a 5-year-old, like I don't have to try that hard to beat the 5-year-old for the average 5-year-old. But I could race a 5-year-old and like beat them, not trying to brag, but I could. And 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 just be at like a light clip, a jog. But a 5-year-old might be in an all-out sprint, like they are gassed at the end. They are dry heaving at the end. And if it's a battle of like who could push their body further and their mind further, the 5-year-old may have won. And that's really what I'm interested in. That's really what I'm interested in. Like who worked harder. And it might be the person who won the marathon. I think
Right.
they're very good. I think in order to do anything like that, you have to be not just physically in shape, no shit, but also very good at the mental battle of being like, my body's collapsing, but I'm going to keep going. Like huge. I think to be any top athlete, you're a mental warrior.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but I think there are mental warriors who like way at the back of the marathon who have pushed themselves. You know, you see somebody and like they don't seem obviously in shape, or like you know maybe they've been working at it, or like maybe their legs are super teeny tiny, or like or maybe they're 6 years old, or maybe they're 80 or something. And like I'm inventing a sport. I invented a sport over the weekend where the measure. of winner loser is not it's not a time, it's not a distance, it's not a weight or a physical thing. It is a measure of willpower. And in this race, I think it's still a running race, but what's great about it is that the competitors lined up in a single heat of this race. It could be a 5-year-old, it could be an 85-year-old, it could be someone super out of shape who has never run a day in their life, it could be a trained marathon champion. And everybody, regardless of their training and physical state, is actually competing in like how hard can you push yourself relative to you. You know what I mean?
I do know what you mean, but I still don't know what the sport is. Everybody's just lined up right
Oh,
now.
well, it looks and sounds a lot like a marathon.
Like a race,
Like
like
a
a
race. It
running
looks and sounds
race.
a lot like a race. Like what I was thinking about, okay, I was on the treadmill when I was thinking about that. I was on the treadmill
Okay, I
and
was like, were you alone when you thought of this, or were you with a 6-year-old and an old person? And
I was alone on the treadmill and I was thinking about the tragedy. I mean, I'm going to call it a tragedy that like the better you are at running, the less time you have to spend doing it to run a marathon. Like for me, running a marathon is like a 17-hour ordeal, right?
sure,
But if you're really fast, it's like, oh, how long is this race? It's only like 3 hours, or like, I don't know how fast they do it, 2 or some shit. Crazy. And it's like, well, I was out there pushing myself for 17 hours and they're only doing it for 2. And we both might be pushing our bodies to the physical limit, absolute physical limit. Like, we're both, so I might soil
right.
my pants much more than the trained marathon runner. And it could be the winner of the marathon who push themselves the most, but it might not be.
Sure. Yeah, again, still bought into that. So how are you measuring?
That's
Like,
a good
do you
question.
just decide at the end, like, okay, here are everyone's times,
Just based on
and
vibes.
here is like who they are. And so because the 80-year-old
No, because there could be 2 80-year-olds. Could be 2 80-year-olds.
and like, are we assuming that they've run a race beforehand? So we have a benchmark, a personal benchmark
Mm,
to measure against? Like, how are we
no,
measuring?
that's a good question, Jess. I thought about it, and I think the best. Maybe some of the other scientists in the community can let us know. I feel like maybe it's heart rate because, like for
Okay,
example, if you're a trained runner running 5 miles at a 6 mile an hour pace, isn't that challenging? And it will show right in your heart rate, like you're not pushing yourself out of whatever zone. Whereas when you see someone super, super out of shape run half a mile for the first time, their heart rate is like through the roof. They have proportionally pushed themselves so freaking hard. And it's amazing. It's amazing.
yeah,
To see somebody who's not used to working out push themselves so hard, it's a relative thing. I think it's heart rate. I think we're just measuring their heart rates.
I like the idea of heart rate. Okay.
Or
But then
sweat,
there's a but
if we
then
could measure their sweat.
there's something stressful about heart rate because at some point, like if the incentive for somebody to win a race is the highest heart rate,
That
it's
could be
like
bad. That
people
could
are
be
going to get a
bad.
heart attack. If they're really
Yeah.
competitive, like they might
Yeah.
just drive themselves towards a heart attack.
Yeah.
I like I like where your head's at because I don't know if you remember in middle school when I was on a rec basketball team with some of our friends called the Rebellious Squirrels. I don't know if that was on your radar.
I do remember for some reason I was not allowed on the team, but I came and
You weren't
watched a lot of the
allowed?
games. I wasn't allowed on the team, but I came and
What?
watched a lot of your games and I just sat on the fucking sideline.
I
Yeah.
don't that wouldn't have been my vote, just so you're clear on that. Um,
I wanted to be on the team because basketball was hot. Basketball was like the hot
totally.
sport. Yeah.
Totally, it was, and what name for a team is hotter than Rebellious Squirrels? And
It was
I, every
cute.
single
Yeah.
year, got most improved. Every damn year, I
Wow.
was
Wow.
most improved.
Yes. That is what I'm talking about.
That is
That's
somebody
what I'm
who's
talking
pushing
about.
themselves to the limit.
Yes, as opposed to the person who shows up there, they've got natural talent for basketball. They're maybe, doing 100 other sports. So they're in the group, they're always running spins,
Yep.
blah, blah. In order for them to score a bunch of points, and they were born with great hand-eye coordination, which I can't speak to yours, but
It's not there. It's fine.
I'm getting the vibe. It's not that there.
You've
Yeah.
met me.
Like they don't have to try that hard to be the star, to stand out. And I really like, I'm not saying we shouldn't not also commend great athleticism. Obviously, I like that. But I also want to have a sport where we're just commending who is the mental warrior in a
Mhm.
physical endeavor, pushing their body. You know what I mean?
Mm, mhm.
Yeah. Most improved.
Okay.
I
I'm
think that's
trying to
more
think.
impressive. I think that's more impressive, actually.
I do too, which is I'm trying to think, like, if there's a sport that comes close to that.
Yeah.
Um, in a way, like, maybe team sports. Obviously, there's a lot of, like, skill there, but
Yeah.
it's also, like, how you work together and strategy, and so that requires, like, mental stamina and awareness.
It gets closer to it. Like, something I think about, okay, obviously, I think I have a lot of complexes about my own inability to win a marathon, which maybe I could do, but I also don't give a shit about it because 'cause I'm not a crazy person in that specific flavor. But, like, I think about, you know, there are certain body types that are suited to running, certain body types that are suited to sprinting, long distance, javelin throwing, soccer, whatever. And I my legs are each about as long as each of my index fingers. And it doesn't matter if you put me racing all women or people my age or whatever, like, I will never, my legs have to move twice as fast in order to keep up. Um, like if you put like a 6 foot tall person on a treadmill at 6 miles an hour and a 4 foot tall person on a treadmill at 6 miles an hour, they're running at the same rate. They'd cross the finish line together, right? But if you look at short person, their legs are going like,
Yep, 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 yep.
and that's what I'm talking about.
No, I mean, okay, I don't run at all. Like, you're saying you're not a
Love
marathon
it.
runner, but you
Love
do
it.
run, like, for yourself, for your health, for your
Well,
whatever. You
yeah, I
run.
hate myself. I hate myself, so I run, you know.
Sure, and I love myself, notoriously love, and
Notoriously, that is the problem. That is the problem. I think lover hater is really just that you love you and I hate
yeah,
me. That's
and
the
I
main
love you
thing.
too.
Yeah,
Um,
but I love you too. I don't hate you. I don't hate you even a little.
um, but so I am familiar with this mindset that a lot of runners have. Like, my sister is a big runner. She's done a marathon and a couple half marathons, and she's really motivated about improving. And I have heard her talk about this phenomenon of, like, she gets really frustrated that no matter how much work she puts into it, there's only, like, so far she's gonna be able to go with, like, her makeup of, like, what her
Yeah.
body is and, exactly what you're saying.
Yeah, you have to be like
And
a certain physical freak to suit the requirements of the sport, basically.
right, right. But then at the same time, I also know that runners and people who do marathons and stuff, really what they are competing with is their own personal record. Like, it's always like I
Mhm.
PR'd, and, like, that's what becomes the benchmark.
I
So
PR'd.
for the larger race, like, there is a winner, but that's actually rarely what you hear people talking about. Like, people aren't saying,
Truth.
"Oh, I came in 780th." What they're saying is I PR'd and cut my time by this amount. So, like, there is,
Well, yeah.
like, kind of both are happen like, I'm sure that a lot of runners and other athletes struggle with this phenomenon, but at the same time, there is a culture of, like, so just be competitive against yourself or whatever.
Well, I think that's the culture when you're below, like, the lowest
When you have to
hundredth.
be. When you
Yeah,
have
when
to
you
be.
have to be. I mean, they still
Yeah.
have winners for races.
Mhm. I don't know. It also makes me wonder how many of our listeners I once said that I believe us to have a smelly audience, like,
Mm,
it just
okay.
feels right, and a lot of people agreed, and I appreciated that. I please agree with me and don't tell me otherwise.
Yeah.
I wonder if we have a runner audience. A few
Ooh.
I know that 2 of my close friends and my sister are all marathon runners and listen to this podcast, but I
Uh,
kind of feel like they might be the only ones.
that's interesting. I never felt myself having a runner audience, but I do know that the audience is depressed, and I think the the prevalence or the instance of, like, depression to professional runner is about a 1 to 1.
Yeah. But I kinda like that because that means you're trying to do something about it, not necessarily, like, get to know your own mind, but get an escape. Also, when you're running, you do get
Yeah.
to know your own mind though,
Yeah,
because
totally.
that's what a lot of people
Very
say about running. It's like it's good
totally.
thinking
Yeah.
time and clearing your head time. I really don't
Yeah, I
get it.
agree.
I'm just spitballing here.
Yeah, okay. That's the smelly part of you.
You know, that is the smelly part of me. I was just thinking like, okay, I'm way more of a and I know you do this as well, but I'm way more of a like weightlifting, strength training type of person with how I work out.
Mhm.
And it's very personal record based. But there are competitions for lifters, but they do it kind of similar to like wrestling, where you're in a sort of weight class. So you're competing
Right.
against people with a similar baseline and a similar benchmark. And so maybe that's a little more fair. Maybe that
Yeah.
should happen
Like,
in more
why
sports.
I agree, like, why aren't there, like, Olympic or yeah, like, Olympic sprinter heats based on femur length? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I just think the word femur is really funny for some reason.
It's a kooky word.
My friend Chris just like injured his femur and I saw him for the first time last week in like 2, 3 months because he was like kind of bedridden and having surgeries and stuff like that. It was really like hard on him.
Mm.
And so we were at this like game night for some of our friends, and I overheard him telling some other people, like, oh, yeah, I injured my femur. And I just started laughing. I think it's the funniest word. And I know it was like a really hard time for him. And I'm just like,
Yeah.
your femur.
During your femur. My friend was bleeding out on the street after breaking his femur, and I couldn't stop giggling. That's funny.
Mm-mm.
Mm-mm.
He did not win that race. Um,
Oh,
well, okay. So you were just thinking about this while running.
yeah.
Have you been doing a lot of treadmill time in your over the holidays? Like what can we haven't talked. Like can you just tell me
We
what's
haven't
been
talked
going
at
on?
all. What's been going on? I don't even know what I've been doing. I haven't really been
Mm.
doing anything. I Okay, that's not a very interesting answer. You have a podcast. Focus, focus,
No, but
say
you're
something.
smiling and that means that you're happy about it. And it's how I
I
feel
am
too.
happy. I am happy. I've been lounging. I've been working out, but not obsessively, just at like a more like consistent rate. Um,
Love that. I have not.
maybe, yeah, I don't know that I'm running more. There was just like or working out more. There was just a period where I was really slacking off over the last couple weeks before the holidays. I'm trying to like take days to like go explore a neighborhood and I don't know, I deleted Instagram. I had to be on there to post some work stuff, but like just deleted the app. I didn't delete my account, but just not having that on my phone. That's actually been a huge one. It's forcing
Yeah,
me I'm still spending time on my phone, but then I'm reading on my phone. Like I'm reading more. And not that reading's so fucking great, but
better.
um it just forces me to more actively engage. Like you're still being fed entertainment to some degree, even if you're reading an article, but you have to more actively engage with it in your mind, which I think helps for creating content. Whereas on Instagram, just absorbing a reel, you're just being
Mm.
force fed 100% of the experience, and it's so passive that I don't really like the attitude of being like, oh well, this is superior to that, and this is like all I know is I don't feel good when I'm looking at Instagram reels or TikTok all day. I'm not above it.
Yep.
I'm not above it. In fact, I'm way below it. That's why I can't handle it.
Yep.
That's like anyone who doesn't have that downloaded on their phone. I think those people like me are the most affected by
Severe.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the most severe. I can't handle it. I can't fucking hang. Um, but if I'm reading or something, it does make me, I don't know, like meet the content or the article or whatever it is halfway with my own ideas, my own experience. And I feel like that's
Mm.
helped. I'm trying to do like a little bit of like a creative refresh with my time off. Yeah.
Yeah. I also deleted the Instagram app from my phone. I did that for like a
Jinx
week.
dog. Fuck yeah.
Yeah. You owe me a
Yeah.
Coke. Diet, please.
Oh, what?
Um
Okay.
uh Yeah, I deleted it off my phone for the first week of the new year. I just like found myself scrolling so much and noticed this like doom feeling in the pit of my stomach, and I was like, I hate
Mhm.
this and I hate myself, and that's not me. I love myself. So like let me return to that. So I deleted it for a week and then I brought it back. I had to like promote Jess thoughts and like I don't know. I was like, okay, I'll bring it back, but I made it so that I have to search the app instead of having it
Mhm.
just like on my home screen instinctively where my thumb goes to like push something when I'm bored. I
Yeah.
made it so that I have to work a little bit harder to go get to it.
Yeah, you, like,
Um
delete it you can delete it from the home screen, basically,
exactly,
before you
and
delete
make
the
it
app,
so that
yeah.
it doesn't show up in your suggestions.
Yeah,
So
nice.
that even when I like pull down on the screen or whatever, it doesn't pop up there. I have to type it in.
Mhm.
And it's been really helpful.
Yeah, nice.
I I've been really overwhelmed by notifications. Like I even have not been wearing my Apple Watch very much in the new year because I just get so like overstimulated by vibrations on my wrist. It's
Yeah.
like I can't escape just being notified about some bullshit or even something I do care about, like my friends. Like I want to open a text from my friend and be happy to receive it instead of being like I'm distracted now. This is a bad time, whatever. So
Yeah.
I've been not wearing my Apple Watch. I've been keeping my phone on do not disturb, which my mom is very upset about, but I had to explain to her that this is not personal to you, although also kind of is. I just like
Yeah, I feel like, I think the deeper you get into content creation, I don't know, I don't really wanna be on I don't really wanna be on Instagram at all anymore, but I do have to some degree,
yeah.
which is okay. But sometimes I like sharing things on there, whatever, I don't know, I think everybody gets it, and I feel like every once in a while, I come up with a method that helps me get some time away from it, and then I kind of forget about that method, and then I get in too deep again, and that's kind of the ebb and flow. So I guess I'm trying to think of it as like falling in and out of your fitness routine. It's okay to fall in and out sometimes. Like it's something you have to keep working at and maintaining. It's, like maintaining your mental health. You can fall in and out of that and like want to do a little cleanup. So I
Mm,
don't know. I'm trying not to get discouraged by being like, well, I racked that shit up again.
hmm
Um, but yeah, just deleting the app has been helpful. And yeah, you guys know it. You guys know.
I think the other thing, and this gets into an interesting topic, is like when you're consuming so much content, you start to like even if you don't want to start thinking that way, you kind of start to like it just infiltrates your brain and you start believing things that you see or you start like adapting the way you talk or your sense of humor or whatever to
Yeah.
these things that you see and like sometimes that's okay, but um I've been working on so I just started like level 2 of the stand up class that I did in Chicago a couple years ago.
Sweet.
So I'm really excited because I'll have a performance in February and like I'm trying to come up with content. I'm trying to figure out if I use things that I've like tested a little bit on the podcast or new ideas. And as part of that, I'm like trying to find my voice, which takes a long time when you're a
Mhm.
creator and when you do comedy and performance and things like that and writing. Um, but I feel like it was harder for me to do that when I was, like, constantly consuming reels. It's like, I
Too
can't
many
hear
voices in your
myself
head.
because there's just these
Totally.
other things that I'm consuming all day, and Abby, our editor, our producer, um, she did a podcast episode on a different podcast, like, a month ago maybe, and we'll link it because I really liked it. It's a really short listen, and she talked about how, like, even from producing a couple podcasts and doing audio editing, she started to feel like she was hearing these other people's voices in her head, our voices, and not sure, like, when she's telling a story to friends or making a joke or writing some content because she's a writer, like if that was her or if she was kind of regurgitating stuff she had heard. And
Mhm.
anyway, I've been thinking about that a lot lately. She also wrote to us um recently and was saying that she's feeling like she's been writing a lot lately and that's going really well for her, but she like hates everything she's writing. And that's kind of what I'm running into with like I've only been doing it for a week, this class for stand up, but I'm already feeling like every idea I have, everything I write down is like not good enough or not like really fully me, or just like I'm not, I don't know, I'm being very critical. So anyway,
Yeah.
it kind of has to
That
do with like
means
outside voices, and it
mm,
kind of has to do with like just
inside
creation in
voices.
general. Yeah,
Mhm.
inside voices. Yeah.
Yeah, when she wrote that to us, she was like, "I hate everything I write." I'm like, "That means you're doing it correctly." Truly, like, I don't think you're in like any kind of artist or creative. If you just love everything you put out, you're a fucking fraud. You're a
Yeah.
fraud, and you're not doing anything interesting, and you're not thinking very critically. That doesn't exist. I've never met that artist in my life. I think you have to write like 1,000 jokes, not exaggerating, to get one that you ever care to work on. I just think that's the process
Yeah.
for so much of it. It's like an imperative step is that you hate what you're making a lot of the time. You have to be super critical, I think. So
It's
don't be
so
discouraged by that.
sick.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just makes me want to like not do it because I'm such
Yeah.
a I'm such a
Yeah.
perfectionist by trade, by training. Like I feel like if I'm gonna hate what I'm about to write and what I'm about to workshop and whatever, I don't even want to write it down in the first place, which is why what you
But
were
you have
saying
to get
about
it out.
Abby is
You have
true.
to get it out. You have to get
Yeah,
you have to get out the stuff you hate. I'm not saying you have to work up a whole 15-minute set around it, but you have to
right,
write it down. You have to get it out.
right. Ugh, it's like pulling teeth, and
Yeah.
it makes me feel like a fraud. It's like then it triggers like imposter syndrome of like I have a podcast and people listen to me and they like what I do, but I'm now writing all these things and I hate them. So is it all a lie? You know what I
Well,
mean?
they're just different mediums. I think
Yeah.
they're totally different mediums. There's something about I think there's some saying, I can't remember what it is for writers, that it's like um, all writers love having written a book and all writers hate writing. Like
Mm.
it's like an incredibly painful poop tooth pulling
Booth?
process. Tooth pulling. Um, yeah, but something I'm abiding by. Um, I don't know. I think this will resonate. Something I'm abiding by, kind of in my New Year reflections. I shared with you all that I'm living in a new year. I don't know about you, but I always reflect on. I kind of do set New Year's intentions. They're not concrete goals. They're not stats to hit. It's not stuff out of my control. It's more like, what do I want my life to feel like? Um, what do I want to be striving for? How do I want to adjust my priorities or focus or how I engage with people, things like that, things I can control, things I can work on. And one thing that I heard, it was actually on Theo Vaughn's podcast when he was interviewing Tony Robbins, who's, if you don't know Tony Robbins, you know Tony Robbins?
Yeah. Isn't
Yeah,
he like a
massive motivational speaker,
yeah,
whatever. There was a period where I really loved Tony Robbins, and I think he obviously helps a lot of people, and also I actually didn't really like this interview with him.
interesting.
It felt a little too salesy. I was like, "Give it a fucking rest." But he still has amazing, I think he helps a ton of people. He's helped me with his work, and he said something which he was just talking about, like, the path of least resistance never makes you happy. Taking the
Hmm.
path, like, in my day, about 100 times a day, I make little decisions, and we all do, about, like, do I wanna force myself to go out for a short walk, or do I could just keep, like, bumbling around my apartment and, like, do this and twiddle there and do that and, like, postpone it, like, I don't have to go for a walk. It's kinda cold outside, like, I'm kinda not into it. I have to get my shoes on. I have to, like, brush my hair. I have to find my coat. I have to, like, get cold. I don't really want to, but I always feel happier if I go for the walk. Or, I feel like I make that decision, we all do 100 times in the day. And there's a lot of kind of like cultural discourse, which I also really, really appreciate and benefit from, around like giving yourself a break. You don't have
Yeah.
to push it. You don't have to push it on everything across the board. You don't have to get an A+ in everything. You can just take it easy. Like, that's a huge value of mine, a huge one. But I think I lost a little bit of my push,
Mm.
especially with work. Like I've been reflecting on what do I want my work with YouTube to look like in the next year. And I've gotten to this place now. I mean, when I started on YouTube, I would put months of work into a single video. I would try things I'd never tried before. I would invest and lose money and just strive and put all this effort and ambition and energy and time and money towards something, hoping maybe it would be worth it. And a few years in, I'm like, my work is very stable, income is very stable. I pretty much know what are the video formulas that will get good views, what will work. And I thought about doing, for example, a room makeover in a subscriber's home, which I've actually never done before. And the reason I've been resistant to doing that is because, like, it's really hard working for a client. Even if I do it, I couldn't just surprise them with a room makeover. Like, I would feel bad if it wasn't something that didn't align with them. So I would work with them as a client to some degree. And then also like the logistics of, spending days in a stranger's home. I'm very introverted. That feels very socially awkward to me. I'd feel very out of place, or being on camera with someone, who knows if they want to be on camera or not. Maybe they don't want to be. Like, are they going to like it? There's just so
Yeah.
much more risk and so much more unknown and so much more work to go into a project that could have a really cool payoff, but I've avoided doing it because I'm like, well, I have a system that works and it's easy and I know how to make videos that people will like, and I can just do a sit down to core chat video. And I think because I've stabilized and reached like a certain level of achievement personally, I'm no longer pushing myself. And I was really struggling to think how I wanted to adjust my work goals for the year. And then I heard Tony Robbins say that the path of least resistance never makes you happy. And I'm like, yeah, I'm not really trying anything hard right now. I
Mm,
am coasting, I'm clocking it in, and that's totally fine. I don't think I need to take the path of least resistance every single day, but it really hit me. um, he kind of went on to say, it's progress that makes people happy. Usually, the progress, like we talked about earlier, seeing your personal improvement and hitting a goal. You're working really hard to get a promotion. Um, Getting the promotion, yes, you totally feel happy for somewhere between a couple hours to maybe a couple weeks. Like, no one feels that high longer than that period. It doesn't, you don't feel that high for like a year. You really don't. Even
yeah.
if you win the Olympics or something, you don't really feel that high for like a whole year, maybe a
It's
few weeks or something.
very fleeting. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the progress that makes you happy.
Mhm.
And he also said, it's usually sharing progress or sharing goal achieving that makes you fulfilled.
Yep.
So, path of least resistance, progress, and sharing. So I
I
don't know,
love.
that like was something that really hit me, and I don't know if that kind of resonates with some other people in the new year, but I just talked for a while, sorry.
No, you're good. Yeah, there was so much in there. We got a message, or maybe it was when I was looking for input for my Just Thoughts episode. Somebody wrote me a message that said, like, talk about balancing self-care with ambition. And then
Mhm.
somebody else wrote in and said, finding balance between my hyperdrive days and my slump days so that I don't have too many I hate myself days. And I was like,
I love
you
that.
just read me like a fucking book, and I saved them. I didn't talk
Totally.
about them in my episode because I wanted to talk to you about it, and that's just kind of come up naturally here, like,
Yes, that's
it's
exactly it.
it's really hard. It's really hard to figure out, like, I know that on the whole, I'm a very ambitious person, you're a very ambitious person. Um, at the same time, I know that I've pushed myself beyond my limits before, and I don't really wanna do that again. I wanna try to do what I can to still achieve the things I want to achieve, still do new things that excite me and energize me, and push myself, because in order to do those things, it's gonna require me to push myself, but I don't wanna push myself, like, beyond limit, and burn out. And so it's this constant tug of war, like push and pull of pushing and then hitting the brakes, pushing and then hitting the brakes. And I think the good thing about what you're describing is, like, okay, you feel like you got comfortable. You got to a place of stability and you let yourself be there. But you also self-corrected. Like you realized that and now you're like, "Okay, I'm going to turn it up again because I was doing that and it was good for a little bit, but maybe now I'm realizing it would make me feel good to start pushing again, and so I'm going to start doing that." Like there's this book that we had to read for my old job. It's called Radical Candor, and it's one of those like corporate books about how to
Yeah.
build a team culture. And I do really like the premise of it. There's like pros and cons to the book, but the general premise is about, to create a good team culture, you need both to care deeply and challenge directly. That's the whole idea of radical candor. Like if you care about your people and you challenge them directly, then that forms this thing called radical candor and it pushes people to be better while they still feel supported. And so
Mm.
that's just the premise there. But there's a part in the book where they talk about rock stars and superstars and like how different people at different times in their career might be rock stars, which are kind of the people that are like solid performers. They'll get the job done. They're dedicated. They do what they need to do, but they're not on overdrive. And then there's the superstars who are at a point in their career where they want to be pushing for the next promotion. They want to be pushing for more responsibility, like whatever's motivating them. They're in a point where they're climbing. And people oscillate between rock star and superstar all throughout their career, and that's like a good thing. You can't always be a superstar because you're going to burn out. And at least for people who are ambitious or high achieving or whatever word you want to use, like they're probably not going to be satisfied if they're always a rock star either. There's like a balance, and you'll have years where you're in the stable state and then years when you're in the pushing state, or months or weeks or whatever the time like variable is for you. But I think that's kind of what you're describing. Like you were
Yeah.
understandably in a stable rock star state and now you're wanting to push again. And I don't think you have to be overly hard on yourself about the fact that that's where you were because you're
Oh, I
aware
don't think
enough
there's
to
I don't think
self-correct.
there's I don't even think of it as a correction. I think of it as a personal preference. I don't think
Yeah.
there is I do not think there is like it is an intrinsic um virtue to want to push yourself in your work. Like maybe your work is the place you coast and you push yourself in your relationships, or you're just trying to like be good to people. You know, like what an
Yeah.
effort that requires. I don't think there's any intrinsic value like that's inherently good and must be strived for. That's a personal preference of something that really energizes me. But in order to get back to that place where I was like we've joked about in previous episodes of like I want a new challenge. I'm
Yeah.
I'm addicted to that shit. It is an addiction, and I enjoy it when it is. The difference for me is that now I have the luxury, and I think like the intention of doing it in a way that is specific and time bound. So I'm
Mm.
not just like sprinting and working till 3 a.m. Every single night forever because I'm addicted to work and and I hate myself in that way, and I'm addicted to always trying to be better because nothing's ever good enough and I'm trying to prove to everyone that I'm lovable, whatever. It's more like I'm going to pick a specific project that feels uncomfortable, that feels challenging. It will have a deadline. It is time bound. It's going to be tricky, and I'm going to, um, overexert myself a little bit for it. And then there'll probably be a
Mhm.
period of chill. But I think the pendulum swings for a while. If you're a little bit of an overachiever for a while, for me, pushing myself, the challenge, the obstacle, yeah, I guess the challenge I was working on was like learning to pull back. It's really hard if you're addicted to it in a way that I think that you are in some ways based on what you shared. And so for me, that was like I'm pulling back maybe in work, or I'm pulling back maybe in some of my social life, but I am actually pushing myself in like spiritual personal growth because of how difficult that is for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think that's something to feel really proud of. Like I would frame it that way for myself. Like I am really proud of myself in this moment as someone who's like has been addicted to working out, addicted to getting an A plus all the time. I would like make a note to be proud of myself on the night when I was like, I do not feel like going to the gym. I do
Mhm.
not need to go to the gym for my health. If I go to the gym now, it's just because I'm being obsessive and I'm never cutting myself a break. And I'm not proud of that. I'm going to be proud of myself for staying home tonight. And like, I would have to kind of clock it that way. So it
Yeah.
depends, I think. I think it depends what your growing edge is. And I think the pendulum will probably keep swinging.
Yeah. Um, yeah, yeah. Wow. Yes. I have a good story that I am proud of
Yes.
along those lines.
Yes.
So, as people know, I have a day job where I do marketing at a digital health company, and it's my 9 to 5 every day, and I do well at it. It's important to me in the sense that nothing I do, I have like a personal mantra or like personal requirement almost that like anything that my name is on will be done well. So I'm not gonna like ever slack on my job. But that being said, it's a
Mhm.
job that allows me flexibility and like I'm good at it. It almost comes easily to me. So I can like get things done well in an efficient way. And that leaves space for what we're trying to build here. And this is
Mhm.
really like in my heart, the priority, but time wise, it can't be yet. And so a a contact from like my network, my professional network, who I had been in touch with a couple years ago when I was looking for jobs during my year off, reached out to me. And I like, when I met her a couple years ago, I loved her. I was obsessed with her. I was like, I admire her so much and what she does in marketing and health tech. And she works at a really cool mental health company that's doing important things that I believe in. And we connected really well back then, but it just never lined up for us to actually start working together. And I ended up
Mhm.
taking this different job. So she just reached out to me and was like, "Hey, I'm hiring now and I'd love to connect with you and whatever." Of course, I'm going to take that call. So we chatted. I learned about what she's looking for. And the role she's hiring for is like, it would be a push myself role.
Mhm.
Um, a former version of myself maybe who didn't have this podcast business that I'm trying to build and who didn't have these other side hustle aspirations would have been like, yes, that's the thing for my corporate career. And it was really hard for me to piece through, like, kind of last week, I was doing a lot of thinking and soul searching about it to be like, do I want to take this opportunity? It's going to take a lot more effort from me, a lot more time from me. And so that's like kind of on the con list, but on the pro list, it's like this person I really respect and this company that would be really cool and this role that would be a growth opportunity. And like, it's hard for me who has grown up in a traditional corporate setting and like always pushed for the next thing and the promotion and the money and whatever to like say no to that. And after thinking about it, I decided to say no to it. And I was just like,
Mm.
my eye is on the prize right now in terms of this, not for everyone. And I have a really good equilibrium right now with my work and this balance. I mean, doesn't mean it's easy every day, but it would be much harder in this role that had been offered, not offered. I would have still had to interview, but had come up for me and I kind of had to like swallow my pride in a sense and be like that I'm not going to take this opportunity because I know that the trade-off is not worth it for what my true like focus and intention is for the long term. And so yeah, I said no. And it was hard to do, but I was really proud of
Yeah,
myself.
that's huge.
Yeah.
That really is huge.
And she
It's
was
a
super
wild
cool
moment.
about it. She was like, "I really respect what you're doing and respect that
Yeah,
decision and like I'm your biggest fan and I'm rooting for you." Like
it's awesome.
everybody's gonna move on. Everybody's gonna be fine. She's gonna
Yeah,
hire
it's a
somebody.
job. It's a
It's a
job.
job.
She wasn't hoping to marry you. She was hoping to
Right.
give you money for services. Yeah, she's
Right.
gonna live. But like that's huge, Jess. It's like it's. I think that's the key to life. I think that's the key to having any chance at achieving your dreams. To me, it's the most one of the most important lessons I've learned as an adult is identifying strategically where I'm okay getting a C in life.
Mm,
It used to be everything has to be an A, everything has to be an A plus. And it's like I am strategically getting C's in some areas because I don't have infinite energy and I don't have infinite time. And I don't have infinite fucks. I have one or two fucks and I give them out deliberately.
yep.
And yeah, it's not everywhere. It's a huge, huge deal. To me, that is as important as the late nights you put in working on the podcast.
Totally. Yeah. It's one of those things like going back to the rock star superstar analogy. In my corporate career right now, I'm rock starring. I want stability. I want to do well and but like have boundaries. I want to clock in and clock out and like get my shit done
Mhm.
so that in my side pursuits I can still have something to like send it with. Like I can still,
Totally.
be a superstar somewhere else. So there's also you don't have to be like stable and chillin' and like comfortable in every aspect of your life all at once. It can be like, different things have different weightings at different times. I think
Oh yeah,
that's the only way to do it.
I forgot we were answering a question. Lol.
Oh, I'm not even answering a question anymore. I'm just
Oh,
going
okay,
back to what
okay.
you were saying about
Oh, I
like
thought you were answering the question. I forgot that somebody asked us a question
I kind of did
of how
too.
to do it.
I think we're
Lost in
answering
the
it.
sound of my own voice. Yeah.
I think we're answering it. It's like there's no perfect answer, but um
It's a mix. I think it's part of that when people ask about intuition. I think it's part of
yeah.
getting in touch with your intuition, getting to know yourself, and that the great adult task of you deciding priority. Like for so much of your childhood life, maybe even through college, people are telling you what your priority is supposed to be.
Yeah.
And like eventually you're allowed to decide. I know I don't have to go to that party. Like I don't have to take that promotion or I do want to do this thing that no one else thinks matters. And it's like a fumbly, messy process for a while as you get to know yourself. Um yeah.
Yeah. I was having a conversation when I was home for Christmas with my family. I wasn't really having the conversation. They were having the conversation and I was observing the conversation and like
Okay.
chiming in very carefully and minimally and strategically.
Hmm.
And it was about discipline. Like my sister is a very disciplined person. She, like I said,
Hmm.
she's run marathons. Like she's good at like, I have this routine, I have these goals, I have these challenges that I want to take on, and I'm going to be disciplined about doing that. And she does it across many areas of her life all at once.
Hmm.
And maybe I was more like that at a time in my life. I don't think I was ever as good at it or as committed to discipline as she is, but I was probably better at it at some point. Um, and there was kind of an undertone in the conversation. We were kind of going around the circle of like my sister and I, my parents, and rating each other on like how disciplined we are. And I
That's funny.
did not request to be rated. Like I was like, the rest of you can take part in this. I will just observe because I know that they have a perception of me that I'm not very disciplined. Like I've never been the marathon runner. I've never uh I don't know. I'll try to like this is a bad example that I hate, but it is a true example that has a lot of family stuff wrapped in it. Like I'll try to lose weight and I won't. Like these are those things that you think of as like somebody needs discipline to achieve those things. I have never really been very good at. But I thought about it more and then after this thing that happened last week with this job opportunity, I was like, I'm fucking disciplined as all get out. It's just that I'm
Yeah,
driving it towards like one thing right now. Like I have a focus and it is growing this podcast and like achieving what I want in this part of my life. And that requires a lot of discipline to say no to other things so that I can drive towards that. Like that is
totally.
discipline for me. It
Yes,
might
it
be
is.
it might look different for someone else. Their discipline might be that they're a runner, that they're this or that they're that, or that they're trying to do many things at once and they
Yeah,
have many goals that all are like equal to each other and so they need to be disciplined about all of them. But for me, I'm like I have a finite amount of discipline to give and I'm giving it all to this and I think that there's something to be said for
yeah,
that.
totally.
Um
Yeah, I'm shocked to hear that they don't think of you as disciplined because I definitely
I mean,
do.
they didn't say it, but I know that that's the
That's
truth.
what you
And
know.
like the tone of the conversation was kind of like everybody else is
Yeah.
talking about their discipline and we're not talking about Jessica's.
Well, what that made me think of is that, like, okay, I do value discipline and like striving for whatever you decide your goals are, working hard at things, taking a difficult path at times, and committing yourself to stuff. But another thing that's a big value and not a lesser value than discipline is like
Hmm.
being well. And so I know as an ambitious person, I know through my own like through fucking this up, I've learned that if I want to be ambitious, have an ambitious goal, if I want to achieve that goal, it's not going to happen through me being like unwell for long periods of time. If I am depleting myself, if I'm feeling disconnected from people, if I'm not grounded, if I'm not sleeping a reasonable amount, if I'm not working out, but also giving myself good breaks from the gym, um, feeding myself spiritually, feeling challenged, but also rested. Like if I am not well, um, if I don't have that well-being, I'm not going to achieve that goal. Or if I somehow do by some fluke, I'm going to collapse right after.
Hmm.
So to me, like being maintaining that well-being is a part of the discipline, which means having balance in my life. And if I'm going to deplete myself and have a couple weeks where I'm not sleeping because I'm working hard, okay. But it's going to be time bound. Um, it's going to be for a set amount of time, and then I'm going to need to like take time to return to nourishing relationships and nourishing myself spiritually, emotionally, mentally, giving breaks. That to me is a part of ambition because I've done it the other way before, and I
Right.
ended up miserable, and I didn't achieve the goal. And sometimes I've achieved the goal and ended up miserable, and I don't know what win that is either. So I don't know. To me, I think that's how I've adjusted things.
Yeah. Part of discipline is giving yourself breaks because how I think of discipline is like staying focused on a goal for the long run, like staying committed to the thing that you want to achieve. And in order for you to do that, it's going to take a while for
You have
you
to
to
make it
achieve whatever
sustainable.
this thing is. Right. It has to be sustainable. So it kind of brings me back to this question or how this person wrote that of like balancing my hyperdrive days and my slump days. Um, your slump days are feeding your hyperdrive days. And like I've kind of struggled with this lately of like I definitely noticed that I'm such an all or nothing person. I'll have an ugly day where I do absolutely nothing but binge watch a show and then the next day I'll do all of my errands and crank out all of this work that I've been putting off and think about how we should like start doing something different for our podcast promo and just like be really firing on all cylinders. And then 2 days later, I'm like, okay, I need a break again. And I just like
Mhm.
have these like really big peaks and valleys in the way that my energy works. And
Yeah.
I used to like be very critical of myself for that, as I think this person is being. And then at some point I was like, that's just how I work. Like,
Where
okay,
does the energy come
I've
from if you don't rest? Like
right, like
you don't run 5 marathons in a row, you run a marathon and then you rest.
so set up my life. I try to set up my life like accordingly to allow for that. I try to make it so that on Sundays I don't do anything. I try to make it so that
Mhm.
I have like Fridays blocked in terms of meetings at work so that I can do a lot of focus stuff to close out the week. Like I try as much as is within my control to set up days and time chunks and whatever to lend themselves to the fact that that's just how I work. So it doesn't have
Yeah.
to be this thing that makes you hate yourself. It all can amount to like the things you're trying to achieve.
Yeah. And productivity doesn't have to be the end goal either. Like I call them she calls them slump days, which made me smile because I call them my slug days. I'm slugging
Mm.
when I be being a slug. And like sometimes it's yeah, like it probably does mean that I'm gonna have a burst of energy or creativity or productivity later, but maybe it just means I get
Sometimes
to
you don't.
enjoy a fucking slug day. Sometimes,
Yeah.
like, what a great day I had being a slug, and then I died. That could be the story.
Yeah.
But maybe you need to adjust your ratio, but just keep, it's all good. It's all smooth. It's all
Smooth sailing.
I all can I tell you something?
Yeah.
I always think the word smooth should have an E on the end of it.
Mm.
Because otherwise it's just smooth.
It's
Smooth.
smooth. It is
It's
smooth.
smooth. Smooth. Like tooth. The tooth, smooth. Wait, no, those aren't the same sounds. Yeah, like tooth.
Yeah, like
Smooth.
tooth.
Yeah, like tooth.
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 Smooth.
Smooth. Smooth. I would like to run on a platform for president where we add an E to the end of
Nothing
smooth.
less.
Nothing less. My friend, oh my God. I caught up with a girlfriend the other day and I was like, how's the dating life? Blah, blah, blah. And she's like, oh, I was dating this really great guy. Like, I don't know, we're having a great time. He's so handsome. The sex is great. He's got great personality. He's super funny. Like, there's just one thing that I've been feeling kind of weird about. I mean, feeling kind of weird about it. And I was like, what? And she was like, well, I think he's a middle school teacher. He's always been a middle school teacher. And the other day, he was thinking about quitting his job and he said he wanted to run for president.
I was really afraid that's where you were going.
And she's like, is that, do I have to stop dating him? Like, is that a delusional person or am I being unfair? And I was like, well, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I guess it's not like technically impossible, but I it was kind of one of those Seinfeld moments where it was like they said one thing and I think I wouldn't be able to kiss them anymore. I think I would be like, what's happening in your brain that
Right.
you thought that?
I mean, it's very Connor Roy if we're continuing my Succession
Yes. Yes.
obsession. Like,
Very
that
Connor
is
Roy. It's Connor Roy.
arguably the scariest of all of the people in the Roy family because he is
Yeah.
so fucking delusional
Right.
and comes across like kind and harmless, but like somebody who thinks that about themselves,
I think
who
stupid people are
doesn't
the most
have the
dangerous
government,
people.
who hasn't like
Yeah.
been in government the whole time. Not that I think that that makes a better president necessarily, but just like, I don't know, if you all of a sudden one day have never thought about this before, and then all of a sudden one day you're like, I'm gonna fucking do that. And you're not even talking about like local city council. Like, let's baby
Well,
steps.
that's what I'm saying. Just do a little baby step. Maybe this guy's real faux pas is just that he shared his dream too early.
Yeah.
Maybe he should have just kept that dream to himself, and he'll
Hmm.
prove us all wrong, and he will be president. I don't know, but I was like, I think I would have to stop dating them, and I think she did break up with him.
Oh shoot.
Yeah,
He got too comfortable too quick with her.
that's crazy. That's crazy. If I and it has
My
nothing to do
date
with him being.
with the
It has nothing
president's
to
daughter.
do.
I
It has
just
nothing
thought of
to do
that.
with him being a teacher. It has everything to do with him having no background in anything and then being like, I'm gunning for politics. Okay, career change, sure. But I'm gonna go for the
The
highest
top.
high. I'm gonna
The
become
top.
king of America. I'm just gonna go for it.
Yeah. It takes a certain type of it already takes a certain type of person, even if they
They're all
have the
psychopaths. They're
credentials, quote
all
unquote.
psychopaths.
Right. But it
Yes.
takes a certain type of person to want to do that in the first place, let alone somebody with absolutely no exposure or background or anything. So
Crazy
I
things
would
have
be
been
worried.
done. I'm worried. I think I yeah. Well, it's over between them.
I would still be worried.
And that was Joe Biden, who he was dating.
We did it, Joe.
I don't know anything about politics, so that's not a political commentary. It's just me
It's
naming
not.
the only president I've ever heard of.
It's not a political commentary. It's just talking about dating red flags. And I think
Yeah,
that's near the top of the list. Narcissist. I mean, it's a little bit narcissistic. So I said it.
it totally is. It totally is.
Um,
Okay, smooth should have an E in the end. What else do
okay.
we want
Was
to
that
talk
actually
about?
on your list? Or did
Yeah.
that just come up? No way.
No, that was on my list.
That's incredible. You're getting really
That
good
was
at this
among
whole
that was among the
podcast thing.
important notes, the important notes I wrote down among a sport I invented and how to pronounce smooth.
Smooth. I
What do you
have a
want to do?
question. I have a
Oh,
question.
totally. Fuck yeah. Fuck yeah.
So I think when you're dating, like this was a
Yes.
thing that came up a lot for whatever reason when I was dating and on the apps and trying to meet people, the concept of good morning texts and good night texts. And
Mhm.
I was always a person that was like, I do not wish for you to greet me in the morning and bid me adieu at the end of the day. I don't need that. I barely know you. I think that was part of it. Like some people would
For
say
someone you
do
barely
it
know,
far
for
too
someone you
early.
for some oh, it's so creepy. "Good
Right.
morning, beautiful. Who is this? I don't
Ew.
know your last name. I don't know your last name. I don't know your last
But
name."
people did that. And some, I do know some women who like want that, like that. I mean, it must be working for these guys who are doing it. It must be working somewhere.
Well,
Anyway, so I was never really like on board with that. But now that I have a boyfriend of a couple years, I'm like, I require
different
it.
story. Different story. Totally different story. Totally different story. Yeah.
That
I
just dawned
never
on me recently. I was like, oh, I am one of those bitches. But it's just
oh
different when
shit.
it's actually a person you
No.
want to hear
Yeah.
from.
It's so different. It's so different. It's so different. First of all, yeah, dawned on you, dawned on me. I never thought I would need that, but Justin has set the standard. I get a good night text, I get a good morning text, and now I'm addicted to it and I can never give it up. And he
Yeah,
set he set an expectation now. So now if I don't get it, I'm like, are we in a fight?
right.
But for someone you're just dating, someone you've been on a couple dates with, even I don't know, even a few months in,
Yeah,
not maybe a few months is too long for people, but a few weeks in, that's like, I want to, unless I want to see your head popping up over the side of my bed in person to say good morning every morning. Like, I don't
true.
need that from you. It's so weird.
I didn't even want it. And like, Ryan didn't even start doing it
Good
until
morning, beautiful.
the last few months, probably. Like, we've been together for a little while, and I
Mm-hmm.
never asked him to do that, needed it, was missing
Never,
it. But
right.
then it just kind of started happening recently within the last few months, and I love it. And now he can't stop ever. But it wasn't even a thing I needed a few months in. And I think about it because there was one breakup that I had. This guy who I dated for like 3, 4 months from Hinge, who the whole issue that I was having with him was that I felt like he wasn't communicating with me enough. Like he would kind of like text me at the beginning of the week to plan a date, but wouldn't really text me in between. And that's okay for the first few times. But come month two, month
Yeah.
three, whatever, I was
Yeah.
like, okay, I never hear from you. Like, but then when we're together, it's great, whatever. I know that a lot of people have experienced that. And when he broke up with me, I had brought this up to him and said, like, hey, I could go for a little bit more regular communication and
I could fuck with that.
whatever. Like, that would be sweet. And when he broke up with me, he was like, I'm just never going to be the guy that like sends you the good morning and good night text. And I was like, okay, I'm not trying to convince you to not break up with me. Like, please, I'm never going to convince anyone to stay who doesn't want to stay. But just for the record, I don't want a good morning and good night text from you. I would just like a, like, send me a fucking link of
Annoying.
a podcast you
So
listen to.
annoying. Like, that's like, you know what? I'm never going to be the man who gives you 4 children. That's what I asked. Okay. I'm talking about we've been dating for 2 months. And do you remember that I exist
Right.
between the days when we see each other?
Right.
You know what? I'm never going to be the one to lay in a dying bed with you and hold your hand as we both pass away into the next world. I'm never going to be that man. Chill the fuck out, bro.
Yeah.
Chill the fuck out.
That's exactly the problem. It's this thing that I do feel like is a bit pervasive in like
Ugh.
heterosexual dating where men assume that women want to like make them their husband right away and like I'm trapped and she wants all these things from me and I have to
That's a
send her good
paranoid
morning and good
guy.
night texts.
That's such a red flag. First of all, I
I
dated
know.
that guy. It's a red flag of a guy who's very touchy about his independence, and it's a
Hmm.
complex that he needs to work on, or you can date him for 6 years. But it's you know, ugh, yeah.
It's boring. It's boring. They're canceled in
I mean,
2024.
they can do that. They can have that complex if they want, but I'm not dating them.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, it pissed me off. So anyway, but now I'm a changed
Ooh,
woman
yeah.
and I need to be tucked into bed.
Do you want to sign off this podcast by us saying a good night text to each other.
Like speaking one?
Yeah, yeah, it's an
Or
audio
like sending one?
podcast.
Okay, okay.
No, it's not
I was
on the
like, is it
audio
just for
recording.
our eyes and like people just know that we did it, but we just texted it?
I know we're gonna speak it. We're gonna do a
We're
spoken
gonna
word
speak it.
audio good night text.
Okay. Yeah, I'd love
Okay.
to receive one from you.
Okay, this is the tone. This is the tone and timbre that all of my good night texts should be read in. Hi, baby doll Jess. I'm about to lay my little head on my little pillow, and I was just reflecting on what a light you are in my life from the first day I met you in second grade. You have always been, shut up, I'm texting. You have always been a little ball of energy and joy, and you have great hair, and you're a wonderful partner, and you don't get mad at me even when I'm being obnoxious, and you're very patient, and you have a very good heart, and I want to cuddle you and be your friend forever. I love you. I hope you have the sweetest dreams.
Oh my gosh. You have sent me good night texts not too far off from that before, I will say. Like if it's late at night when we're texting about something,
Sometimes I do.
yeah, and you're like about to go to bed and you want to let me know like I'm going to
I get
stop answering because I'm going to bed.
emotional.
Yeah, and then you take it there and then I'm like I'm not ready. It's like I love this and I agree with it, but do I just like repeat the same thing back cuz she knows I feel that way and like it's going to seem disingenuous if I
Yeah.
just say it back right
You
now.
don't have to. Yeah, you don't have to ever say it back.
So what I would
Say it in
say
your own time.
instead
Okay.
is kind of more like, "Hey baby, I want to make a podcast with you." No, that's the beginning.
I
That's
want
your
to put a
ad.
podcast in you.
That's how our ad opens on our podcast. I think it's so
I want to
funny
put a
every time.
podcast inside you. Yeah.
Um no, it would be something like, "I wish you were here to stroke me gently as I fall asleep and think about your beautiful hiney."
That actually is something that you probably texted me before.
Yeah, I think that's more like I would take it there and then we would both sleep beautifully and soundly.
Mhm.
That's what we both need.
What we both need, and it's what you needed, and you didn't know it when you turned in for this podcast, but now you know it. Spank you on the butt and send you out the door. This has been not for everybody. You listened, and that's your fault. You can find us on Instagram at Not For Everyone Pod with the number 4 in there. Jessica DeBakey is JZ DeBakey on Instagram because it's her first initial, her middle initial, and her last name, you idiots. Mine is irrelevant, but I'm on YouTube at Caroline Winkler. And this episode was, I don't know if it was edited or produced by Abby. She's kind of she's on a writing retreat right now, but she's around, and
She's in
she'll be
my mind and
back.
my heart
Yeah,
as we work on editing the podcast. I think we'll be thinking of her and wishing she was here this week.
she's in our prayers. Thoughts and prayers to Abby Newhouse. Okay. Bye.
Cheers. Toodaloo. Yay, yay,
Wow.
yay.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah, yeah.